I guess my thinking going into the season and having watched the preseason, um, and Mike, I think you can talk a little bit about the buzz. I'll kind of from a hockey standpoint. Um, I'm wondering where like the scoring is going to come from, and that seems really odd with David Pasternak on your team. Um, but I don't know if it's just either names I don't recognize as a real big hockey geek, or it's names that I should not recognize. But the back end, Swayman and Corpusalo. I don't know, one of those Eastern European
Corpusalo.
names. Corpusalo. Um, Lowry, McAvoy, Lindholm. I feel like they're fine. On that end. Up front, I mean, I don't know, it was a Washington game. I mean, I feel like they got what like they were in single digit shots for a lot of the first two periods. And I just if you can't score, I'm not sure how much there is to really get excited about, because if you're trying to get folks interested in a team with a new coach, a new core, um, yeah, it's nice to kind of be like beating people up on the blue line, but you got to put the ball. You got to put the puck in the net, and I just don't know how they're going to do that, and if they can't do that, I mean, what's going to draw people in? I was kind of looking at it, and I was wondering if we're kind of entering a little bit of an era like we were in like the early mid 2000s, and I'm sure Mike, you look back on that era with great fondness, given where you were at your time in life. For me, it was kind of like a malaise era, where it was like they, obviously Thornton left, or they, traded Thornton, had the lockout. It kind of like cleared the decks for a couple years, and it was kind of they were there, but not really anything that you got excited about. I think maybe the difference though is that I don't know that there's like a David Krejci or a Patrice Bergeron coming up the pipeline this time to build the next round of great Bruins teams. So it's a long story short to say, I'm giving them a couple weeks to draw me back in. I'm not sure that they'll be able to do it while the Patriots and MLB postseason are taking place at the same time.
The in that era, the Bruins were very much not on my radar. As somebody who was spending, the Bruins play a lot of their games on Thursday and Saturday nights. And as somebody who spent the bulk of that time in high school and in college, Thursday and Saturday nights were maybe preoccupied with some other activities. So,
You had a lot
and
going
they
on. Yeah,
sucked.
yeah.
Yeah, and I still actually like baseball back then. So there was a lot of other stuff keeping my attention. Um, and then coincidentally, the most attention I've paid to the Bruins was spent over the last 15 years, which I don't know if there's anything else in my life that might have made me a little bit more, had the Bruins in my face a little bit more. Maybe it's, the place I worked, which is not to say that I only like the Bruins or followed the Bruins because I worked in Nesson, but like it is jarring. Like, again, not being totally in the sports world anymore. Like, I had no idea. You're not getting, even something as simple as like I'm not getting emails from PR departments at teams anymore. I was flipping around yesterday. I was like, oh, they're or scrolling through Twitter. It's like, oh, the Bruins press conference is today. Like that thing that always felt like an event, and I'm not sure if it felt like an event because I was working at Nesson or because that they were better or both. Where it's just like very much a whimper, especially because like the Red Sox are kind of ascending. There's still some storylines there. The Patriots are obviously the Patriots no matter what, but now they're starting to get a little bit more momentum. Even like the Celtics, you talk about them, it's like now the talk is like, can Tatum get back in February, March? And if that's the case, this isn't a lost season. So there's all of that. And then you dig into it, or you start listening to Cam Neely yesterday. And Cam Neely says, we want to play with more piss and vinegar. And we looked at the market, and I actually believe this part. So like they looked at the market, and this was borne out by what happened. Like the market was not rich in goal scorers, so they pivoted, which is a somewhat understandable thing. We can talk about, some of the contracts that they handed out, or they're giving, you know, enforcers basically 5-year deals. Maybe you didn't have to go that far just because the market sucked, but they and he also alluded to the fact that they're going to have to win games 2-1 a lot more often than they have in the past. And I think that that's a problem for two reasons. The first is that's not the direction that the league is going. And so you're playing a different game, and that's kind of been the knock on them for a while. It's just that they had a lot of good players still, I guess they kind of get some credit for it too. Obviously, you can't just say, like, well, they had better players. Like, somebody brought the players in. But now that the talent isn't as high, especially in the offensive side of things, like, that completely complicates stuff. I'm not entirely sure that the defensive core can either stay healthy or be as good as they think it's going to be. I think it's a huge season for Jeremy Swayman to prove that last year was an aberration, that it took him forever to get up to speed, and he finally didn't. So there's a lot of questions about the defense as it is, or like their ability to win these 2-1 games. But the bigger issue, in my opinion, is like, you just can't, like, I don't think you can be like, like tonight or whenever, like their opener, they're playing in Washington, or tomorrow,
Wednesday.
but I don't know what day it is. Like, there better be 3 fights, a line brawl. Like, you better come out and set the tone. Like, they better be an interesting, entertaining team to watch, because it's like a rerun of Slapshot every night, if that's what you want to build your identity around. But like, the problem with that, when you don't have a lot of talent, especially offensively, is like, yo, when you're down 3-0 after the end of the first period, the Capitals or whoever, like, you can sit there and be like, here comes the piss and vinegar, and like Alex Ovechkin or whoever is going to look at you, laugh, skate away, and completely take that out of your game plan. And like, so being full of piss and vinegar only goes so far. And that's, yes, if it's 1-1 in the second period, they might be able to impose their will. But like, you can only, you can't eat what you can't catch. And like, if guys are skating by you, like, your physicalness, your toughness doesn't do a whole lot for you. And like, the other thing is, like, I just think that's, like, I like the idea of it, but generally speaking, it's antiquated. And I just can't ever get away from the fact that, like, Cam Neely, it feels like, has always put a priority on finding guys who played the way that he did, which is understandable, but that was 30 years ago. Like, it's just a different game now. And like, the idea of this power forward who's going to score 30 goals, like, you're going to either have to pay up for that, or like stumble across it in a way that they have been incapable of doing, or it just doesn't exist. So like, there's not a whole lot of direction, it feels like, and the one direction that they're going just feels like it's outdated and maybe not the right one.
And that's been like so much of this tenure. It feels like it's just like the roster construction for a number of years now that maybe was shadowed, by top scoring for a couple of years. Now it's like, all right, we're going into a season that we talked about the buzz earlier. Like, it literally took like a double take on Twitter from me the other day. I'm like, wow, they start Wednesday? Like, where did that come from? But
Also,
it
it doesn't
is
help
so
when
much.
it's 85 degrees
Say
outside.
weather. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it. That too. That too. It's like, you got to worry about the ice melting in the garden this week. Like, but I think Ben's right in the sense of like, all right, like, there is a very short window for this roster to like earn buy-in around here. It's like,
Yeah.
even without Tatum, even after the holiday trades at the Porzingis trades, like, there's going to be Celtics buzz because there's still talent on the roster. And like, people will tune in every night to see like who Joe Mazzulla tries to fight in a press conference, or how that like turns out. The Patriots obviously trending upward, and people are gonna be sitting on pins and needles until the World Series ends to find out if Alex Bregman's opting out. Like, I feel like we talk about that with the Red Sox a lot, because it's like, all right, well, there's a short window to buy in of, after the playoffs, like, once the Celtics and Bruins are done with the season, like, there's that short window before training camp of like a month for people to buy in for the rest of the season. The Bruins window, for all those reasons we just mentioned, feels very, very slim. And you're relying on trying to find an entertaining product, a much faster start in the goaltending department this year under a new head coach, and the bulk of your scoring is going to be, especially given some Pastrnak uncertainties, the majority of that is counting on Morgan Geekie to follow up a season where he doubled his career scoring numbers. It's like, okay, like, that's a lot to ask in a 3-week window.
First line Morgan Geekie is just like, I like him, and he's a good player, and maybe he'll have another 30. But like, that's just not what serious teams do. Like the beauty or the luxury of a Morgan Geekie scoring 30 goals is he does it on your second line, and you know what I mean. And so like that's just that's part of the problem too. There was one other thing I was gonna mention that Tim kind of hit on. Oh, like the other thing is like if they are there's this whole thing in the NHL where if you're not in the playoff field, and maybe it's a little bit different now than because of the way that they've changed the playoff formatting, but like if you're not in the playoffs on American Thanksgiving, like the percentage of teams that change that by the end of the season is like very low. Like you basically have to be in the field by Thanksgiving, or you're just not going to be there in April. And I think they just don't. People aren't going to have a ton of patience for it because there's going to be a lot of confirmation bias. I think people are coming in with similar opinions that we have that they're just not going to be that good, and if they aren't good early, people are going to tune out. And um, and going back, the other thing I was gonna mention is like the only hope that they have with this play style is it's just a different, less talented version of what they've done in the past. Where it's like, yeah, you're right, Tim. Like this has been a conversation topic for a long time, especially under the Neely/Sweeney, and even if you want to go back to Shirelli, there was some of it too. Like, can you score enough when it matters most? Or do you have guys who completely change the game when it matters most? When it gets to the playoffs, do you have enough firepower? Do you have enough scoring depth? The answer has been a pretty resounding no for a lot of this run. But the thing is like they are a great regular season team. And that's in large part because like when Winnipeg, maybe that's a bad example, when Chicago comes here on a Tuesday night in March and there's nothing to play for, you can beat their brains in and, piss and vinegar all over them. And like, you're just going to outwill them. But like when it gets to nut cutting time, like that just doesn't go as far when everyone else, like who's put their piss and vinegar away in the closet for the entire year and got by in talent. And then when it does matter, they bring it out and they have a full reserve. Like that's when you feel it too. So it's just, it's frustrating. Cause like, I don't. It just feels like they're playing a different game, and I don't think that's going to change as long as those two guys specifically are making decisions.
Yeah, big picture too. Like from like a media standpoint, I also think it's very difficult to get casual fans or even fans who are like maybe on deciding whether to buy in on a season and a team. In my opinion, hockey is harder to watch now, like physically, like harder to watch now than it maybe has ever, because it's not like when I was growing up. I mean, a lot of the games were on like TV 38, and then for a long time, I mean, you can get almost all the games are on NESN. It's really fractured now. We got TNT I think is the first game, and then there's ESPN, there's NESN, there's all sorts of other stuff, and so I think that like it's really hard to get people to like say like, oh, I will happen upon this thing because I've heard about it. And the luxury that like a baseball team has is there's not as much competition. Like if you're doing well in July and August and someone's like, hey, I'm going to check this out, it's just as hard to watch baseball, but there's a lot less on the airwaves to kind of compete for that time. In this situation, like you're going to be going, you're talking about obviously start of basketball season. Football season is heating up, and then it's even like, oh yeah, I've heard the Bruins are playing well recently. What I'm going to do, look it up. Oh wait, they're playing on TNT tonight. I don't have cable, so I guess I'll just let that skip for today.
I'm going to watch the Tim Allen sitcom instead.
Yeah, so it's like there's also that challenge that they're dealing with just from like a consumption standpoint.
You don't think that's why is that not as much of an issue for the NBA? Where I feel like the NBA is even more fragmented now.
That's a good question.
I remember they're the highlights league. If you ask their commissioner,
yeah, that's part of it. That's where I was going to go with it. Is I don't think the NBA really cares if you watch the games.
Yeah. Especially, obviously, I mean, they just got. How much is the NBC deal worth? How much is it? You know what I mean? Like what they got. This kind of ties into the thing we were talking about earlier. Once the money is there, the money's there. Like they're. Like they got the TV money. They don't give a shit.